Welcome back to Fly Fishing Rutland Water. It's exactly 7:46, which is the moment of sunrise this morning. I've come down to see if I can get a trout, rainbow or brown, in the twilight. There was an interesting article posted on Fly Fishing Large Reservoirs by Neil Cohen about how fish, brown trout particularly, feed at this time of the day, and it's all to do with the physics of how the light affects how they see. I had 3 fabulous fish last night. One quite early on, a nice rainbow of around 3.5 to 4 pounds. Then I got a second rainbow about 15 minutes before sunset, and that one was slightly larger, it was about 4.5 pounds. And then just as the sun was setting, I turned around to take a picture of the sunset because it was really lovely. I took a picture of the sunset looking up that. I then turned around and thought, right, there's nothing much happening here, so I'll just go home. And I was pulling the fly in like this, and all of a sudden it was still exactly like this. And all of a sudden there was a bow wave behind the fly, and it was a big bow wave, and it was another big brown trout. Had a real tussle. It kind of took me out into the deep water. This weed here is really tricky because your line goes down through the weed, so you're kind of getting that extra tension which loses contact with the fish, which is not good. But I managed to land it, which I was very pleased about. Got a lovely picture of it going back. It took a while to revive because it did fight quite hard. The other thing I found last night was the rainbows seemed to take the popper when it was static. The browns seemed to want a bit of movement in it. Now I think I was slightly further up there because, believe it or not, the ground is still kind of mucky from the silt from where I was playing the fish. There's a spot there, it just seems to be the slightly deeper water where the fish want to play. So I'm going to have a couple of casts here and then pop over there. Now I don't really know if I'm going to get anything today. This is really just I've had a few decent fish in the morning. It's quite calm, but I've had a few decent fish when it's been flat calm, so you don't necessarily need a ripple if the fish are in the mood for the fry. You can get them to take in a flat calm. I'm also using the snowbee line because I wanted a decent distance, but I wanted more delicate presentation because I knew it was probably going to be quite still. So I'm using the snowbee line. The other thing that's really interesting is I've not had any of my fish on the usual fry bashing setup. I've been getting them all on these little poppers. I'll show you the popper in a second. I've got 2 very similar patterns, and all of my fish have been on these 2 patterns except one. This thing here. It's a really, really nice popper pattern. Now this one's got a pink tail. The other one I use has a green body and it has red eyes. Now there's a bit of movement over there. Is that a fish or is that a fry? Now either way it's good, because if it's fry, it means it's running away from something that wants to eat it. If it's a fish, it gives me something to cast at. Let's get the popper out and get the line out again. Now, I know where that fish was. I can see a little bit of movement under the surface. Now, I don't believe in the morning the fish come up at bang on sunrise. I think it takes a little while for them to wake up. So there's a bit of a lag period. It's not bang on sunrise, it's a little bit after that they decide that they want to have breakfast. So we'll see if that's the case this morning. The snowbee's going out an absolute treat. Don't need to go any further than that. Yesterday the rainbows seemed to want it static. The browns, the brown, took it when I was retrieving the fly. So at the moment I'm just letting that fly sit in the surface film, and if there's fish cruising around, hoping that they wake up, decide they want breakfast and find it. Really like the spot. It's just to the left of Arnley Wood, and the reason I like the spot is it doesn't get fished a huge amount, and the bank further down there is so heavily forested that it just doesn't get fished. So the fish are moving up and down this bank. They're not really being bothered. There's very little angling pressure, and I think that's what makes the difference. It's been a fabulous season this year. I've not had anything like the number of larger fish that I've had this year. I think, in fact, to say I've had more fish over £5 this season than all of my other seasons put together. Now, obviously, I think part of that's because it has been a very good season, but I think it's the fact that I'm retired and I'm just putting the hours in. I think fishing is a game of endurance. If you want to get the big results, you've got to put the effort in to get it. And sometimes it means coming down and fishing in conditions like this when it looks like there is absolutely zero chance of getting a fish. And I've got my new Sims waders on, a lovely pair of waders, comfortable, warm, no leaks, no condensation, and the boots are pretty good as well. They're very incredibly robust. It's more like a pair of hiking boots that you can wade in rather than a pair of wading boots. Very snug fitting. Everything about these is snug fitting, which keeps all the air out, which I think is what causes the condensation. It was roughly this distance out that the fish took. It followed all the way in and then just took on the edge of the weed bed. I think it may have thought that the fry was going to escape into the cover of the weed, and that's what made it take. It was a violent take, probably the most violent take of all the brownies I've had so far. Look at the casting, it is so much more smooth now. Could do with a little bit more wind though. Same oh, there's a fish down there. Now you can see the boil in the water. Now it's way far away from me, but if I put that fly out there, there's a chance that fish is going to come swimming by. You can see some fry moving just under the surface there, or just breaking the surface right in front of my fly. That, to me, is an indication that there's something under there that's chasing them. Now it could be perch, it could be rainbows, it could be brown trout, it could be anything, but there's clearly something that is irritating those fry just beyond the weed beds. And I think that's another reason why early morning is good. The fry are confident enough to go out of the weed beds into the deeper water because they have the cover of, oh, there's another fish just down there off the edge of the weed bed, almost in a line with the fence. You really have to pay attention, because if you do see the bow wave, they very rarely take of their own free will. You generally have to do something with the fly, and that's either stopping it. And if you stop it and they take, great. If you stop it and they don't take, then what I do is I tend to rip the fly back fast. Very typical of Rutland water. Just because you've had a fish in a spot one day doesn't mean it'll be there the next day. That's quite a common thing that happens. I couldn't resist the temptation to come down, have another go. Nothing happened this morning, so this is a real chance to test if the theory about fish feeding in the evenings is correct. Really, I'm just down for an hour or so, till sunset, like last night, see what happens. The wind's getting a bit gusty, so I've upped the tackle. I've gone for the wraith because it's got a bit more punch in this wind. And let's see if the fish come on in the evening. Distance isn't a problem tonight. There's a chap further up the bank to the left, quite a good bit further up the bank to the left. There was some nice ripple up there when I passed by this morning when the wind was a little bit gentler. The wind is strong, but because we have this big bank of the peninsula behind us, it's not really affecting us as much as it probably is affecting the rest of the reservoir. It's got a strong wind today. Oh! It's on! Oh, it's off! It's still there, it's still coming. Come on. In almost the same spot that the last one took as well. They must be very tentative. I might have to change the fly and put a daddy on or something just to show them something different. That's 2 takes in the one spot. That one I actually felt, which was good. And that was static after the fly had just landed. We'll see if we can get it to take again. Trouble is, once they've seen it once or twice, they're not going to come back for a third time. We're quite a bit away from sunset, but another good hour away. And obviously I think they're maybe a little bit tentative. Right, there's a fish moving. First one I've seen. It's in the area now. I can cast to this one. I know where it is. I've just seen it moving again. Right, now that's going to put the fly right in front of that fish. Now if that fish keeps moving that way, it's going to come straight up to that daddy. There's no guarantee it's going to take, but it is moving in the right direction at least. Now there aren't any natural daddies on the water, so I guess we're relying on a really just feeding instinct for the fish to actually take this fly. I did want to try it, just in case. Pull it back a little bit, and then we're going to throw it into the area where that fish just rose. Now there's no guarantee it's actually a big fish, or there's no guarantee it's actually even a trout. But you've got to at least give it a go. It's right in the spot. Oh, oh you bum! Oh well, sorry for the expletive there folks, but that fish snapped me and that's not happened. I don't expect that to happen with 11.5 pound leader on. Some of the browns have got very sharp teeth. We're now in the last kind of 10 minutes of the evening. I don't think it's worth fishing into the dark, but this is the time of night where there really is a chance. This is when the brownies too. We've managed to get quite a lot of follows on camera, which I think is excellent. It'd be nice to get a fish on camera, but I think you've got a feel for what this place is like in the morning and the evening, and got a sense of what it's like fishing these tactics for the larger fish over the weed beds. It's the follows. Sometimes the weird thing is when they want to take, they take first time. Tonight it's been a lot of tentative takes. These fish have been following more out of interest than hunger, and you've got to get them when they're hungry, because that's when they take. And the trouble is when you see these waves, you don't know whether it's a 2 or 3 pound rainbow or a massive brownie. It's really hard to tell. It's only when if the take actually happens, that's when you get the indication that you're into something a little bit larger. Actually, that was a little one over there. That was only about £1, £2 maximum. So there's still a lot of smaller ones, and they've obviously stocked the reservoir quite well recently. So some of these smaller fish are moving in and around as well. So just because you're getting these pools, it doesn't mean that they're all necessarily big fish. You know, the small fish are quite happy to feed in the weed beds as well as the large ones. If there is less light, do I have more chance of actually connecting with the fish rather than having them come up for a look like they have been doing and tormenting me all night? There's a fish there cruising about 2 rod lengths out. I don't know if you saw it. I could have hit it with my rod easier than I could have caught it. Oh, that wind is getting gusty. Oh, that wind is getting really gusty. There's a fish at the daddy. What has it taken? It's on! It's on! Right at the end! Right at the end! Ah! Right. On the daddy, right at the end. Static daddy. I just left it. Didn't take it first time, but it wanted a couple of looks at it. I don't think it's a big fish, but it's a fish. Yeah, it's not big, but it'll do. It's not the biggest fish I've ever caught. I think it's quite a small one actually. But they all count. Now this one's going to go back, so it's not big at all actually, but it's lively. And there it goes into the net. Now this is not the biggest fish I've caught over the weed beds. It's okay, it's about 2-3 pound mark, nice silver tail. That's something that started out as a stockfish, is nothing massive, but as always, we'll let it go back nice and gently. There we go, and away. It's right on sunset. Sunset is 5:40 tonight, and it is exactly 5:40. Right, well thanks for coming fly fishing on Rutland Water with me this evening. Second time lucky, trying to repeat what I did the other night, which was catching a fish right on the stroke of sunset. And that's what happened. That fish literally took on the stroke of sunset. Not the biggest fish I've ever seen, but hey, they all count. And that was interesting because fishing along the bank, I got nothing with poppers, I got nothing with shrimps, I got nothing with dry daddies. But I saw some fish moving around up here, so I thought I'm going to go and give it a go. So I showed them the popper a couple of times, and I got the boils, but they never took. Then I thought, just as it got to Twilight, I thought I'm going to put a big ugly daddy on there and just throw it out and just let it sit and see what happens. The fish had 2 goes. I felt nothing on the first hit, and I thought that's the fish hitting the daddy to drown it, and then it'll come back and take it. And that's exactly what happened. So it's not just browns that like sunset, the rainbows like it too. If you've liked the video, please make sure you hit the like button, and I'd be delighted if you would subscribe to the channel to see more of my fishy adventures. Thanks for watching.